Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our Smart Buildings webinar. The aim for today is to take you through what makes a building a smart building and the benefits of having the information a smart building provides. We will look at energy consumption, sustainability, risk management and mitigation, as well as hear from an experienced smart building user. At the end, we will endeavour to answer as many questions as we can, so please put your questions in the chat as we go along. Firstly, let me introduce myself. I'm Ian Anderson, and I've worked within artificial intelligence and IoT, or the Internet of Things, for the last 10 years. I joined Zurich just over a year ago to help develop and commercialise IoT solutions. I am also very fortunate today to be joined by Gordon Matchett, a senior risk engineer with over 30 years experience, and the Premises Technology Innovation Manager within Zurich UK, Martin Richards, who implemented the smart building solution Zurich Insight into UK buildings. Gordon, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Ian. Yes, as Ian has said, I have been working in risk engineering for 30 plus years, and with Zurich for 20 years, and also involved in developing IoT solutions for risk management for the past 4 years.
And Martin, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, so I'm Martin Richards. I'm the UK Technical and Innovation Manager. Been working with Zurich for 30 years. I'm responsible for engineering-based IoT and smart technologies. This includes systems such as BMS, lighting, smart lockers, occupancy, space utilization, and energy, temperature, and air quality monitoring.
Thank you very much, guys. Let me start by explaining what a smart building is. Smart buildings are structures that utilize technology to optimize performance. They are designed to monitor performance on a variety of metrics, such as comfort, efficiency, and productivity. To achieve this, they're equipped with digital sensors that can gather data and connect with software to provide opportunities for optimization. These buildings have a variety of modern and innovative technologies, from artificial intelligence, or AI, to the Internet of Things, IoT. A building with a building management system, or BMS, is considered a smart building. Some of you may not know what a BMS is or what it can do, so let me explain. At its core, a BMS acts as a centralized control hub that connects and monitors different components of a building's infrastructure, from lighting and HVAC systems to features like fire alarms and CO2 levels. Effectively, the BMS brings everything together in one cohesive network. The primary function of a BMS is to collect data from sensors placed throughout the building. These sensors measure parameters such as temperature, humidity levels, occupancy rates, energy consumption, and more. The data gathered from a BMS can then be put into another solution like the one Martin used, Zurich Insight, to be analysed and deliver back benefits like reducing energy consumption and costs, as well as reducing the overall carbon footprint of the building. For instance, for the reduction of energy consumption, digital sensors may identify a meeting room or area of an office that a business rarely uses, along with the days and times it's most frequently occupied. It can then adjust energy usage to ensure that heating and lighting is applied to the room automatically when it's most likely to be in use. As solutions like this analyze real-time data, loss preventions like escape of water can be detected early through sensors picking up high humidity levels on air handling units. An example of this will be discussed later in the webinar by both Gordon and Martin. From a maintenance perspective, most components within a building are just placed on a maintenance schedule. However, if we look at the data, we will be able to carry out maintenance just when it's needed, rather than over or under maintaining due to an estimated schedule. Given that most existing buildings, especially in established urban areas, were constructed without energy efficiency as one of their key priorities, the potential for energy savings in commercial and public buildings is remarkably high. For most commercial or public buildings, the high rate of electrical consumption is often overlooked, especially by the people who use the properties on a day-to-day basis. Lights, heating and cooling, and machines are often left running 24/7, even if it's not necessary. In fact, the Environmental Protection Agency reported that 30% of energy used in a public or commercial building is wasted due to inefficiencies. Now, I'm sure if you all looked at what you paid last year over the whole year for your energy in your buildings, that a 30% reduction would be a significant number. So can we afford not to make energy reduction a priority? This is before we consider, are we doing our best to reduce our carbon footprint? With public and commercial buildings being a huge energy consuming sector, it is critical for property owners and tenants to become more conscious about energy efficiency. The government is doing its part by introducing updated guidelines that require property owners to adopt better measures. However, strict compliance then becomes a key factor in pushing this initiative. While there may be an initial expense of undertaking such projects for the public or commercial sector, the long-term payoffs are substantial. We also must not forget that the construction industry has also suffered the rise in energy cost, accompanied by a significant increase in the cost of materials. So the decision to retrofit an existing building to make it smart or smarter may be a much more cost-effective one than building something completely new. Energy efficient buildings can deliver substantial financial savings, and the overall positive effect on the environment is absolutely priceless. I would now like to hand over to Gordon Matchett, who will talk you through how IoT can be helpful in relation to risk management.
Thank you, Ian. We will now look at how using data to mitigate risk works. As previously stated, I have worked in IoT solutions for risk management for around 4 years now. Increasingly, we are working with customers who are using and looking to utilize building data for risk management purposes. On the slide there, you'll see the statement, which I think sums it up quite nicely. Using building data, we can identify, assess, and proactively manage risk, enabling you to understand your building better and prevent losses and/or potential business interruption. I will give you some examples of how and where we can use building data for risk management purposes now. There's quite a number of areas, but I'll go through the sort of top 5 areas that I think are important. Fire suppression, including sprinklers. There's a lot of information that comes out of building data in relation to this when you have that sort of system in place. It covers things like pressure loss, the water pressures itself, valves open, water supply levels, pumps working excessively. These are all massive bits of information in relation to that we can make a judgment as to whether or not our suppression system or our sprinkler system is working effectively. Fire detection. Fire detection is another prominent point for risk management. Under that, there's information that comes in relation to potential alerts for faults, weekly test information, etc., all good information we need when we're dealing with fire detection. Electrical installations. The electrical installation, there's an energy point to that where we can look at sort of out of hours usage, general usage, and make changes to how and where the electrical installation is used within the building. But from a management point of view, risk management point of view, sort of increased resistance indicating possible increase in heat. That is a potential for a major issue. Also, fluctuations in usage from kilowatts to high kilowatt usage, etc. All these things can show that the electrical installations under pressure, and further investigation to try and prevent a loss can be maintained there. Other points, what we would call emerging risks, such as EV charging, electrical vehicle charging, and photovoltaic panels, known commonly as solar panels. Again, we can get data on how these things operate, how they're using the electrics, how they're being managed, etc. And that's all valid points in relation to risk management. Another point is water. Water can be a massive issue in relation to insurance world, risk management, escape of water, leaks. There's sort of usage levels, high usage, variations in usage, all can tell us that there's maybe a problem and something to look at. We have had some information on a customer that from a leisure background, and they had cold water storage on their site, and it was actually noted that their storage of water was at a higher temperature than normal, which looked like it was a potential Legionella risk. That was spotted because of the building data, and we were able to mitigate that risk by reducing the temperature of the storage water. Another thing that is there, and last one I'm going to talk about here, is air quality. Following on from the pandemic, it's imperative that in the working environment that we have fresh air flowing in the working environment. So again, there is various bits of data that could be pulled from the building, allowing us to make a judgment as to the level of air quality. Again, a customer in the leisure industry was noted. We were able to bring off data to show that within their gym areas, the level of CO2 was exceptionally high, and we were able then to speak to the customer, and they were able to ventilate that area to make the environment much better in relation to fresh air. That's a number of points I've gone through there. And what I will say is that we will continue to develop this as a risk management point of view. There's other things, there's other areas out there, and learn more as buildings become much more smarter. Yeah. This in turn will unlock the value within your building. Provide clear comparison data to measure risk and efficiencies across sites, and it also will quickly identify areas for improvement. Next point I'll go on to, and you've just skipped a slide there, Ian, if you could just go back, please. Next point I'll go on to is proactive preventative maintenance. What I've said to you, a lot of that information we're getting, it gives us a head start in relation to maintenance in buildings. So if we know that there's a potential issue there, then we can attack that issue. We can deal with that issue. We all want our buildings to run efficiently and effectively and without interruption. It will, by being proactive in relation to the maintenance, it will prolong the lifetime and efficiency of assets by using the data to take a risk-based approach to maintenance. I personally think being proactive by using this data, it's a big step forward for maintenance for buildings. And we're able to identify issues, those potential issues, before they become an actual issue. If you want to go to the next slide, please, Ian. Thank you. So now we're going to look at using the benefits of using data the benefits of data-led risk mitigation. And there's four main headings here that I'd like to just have a quick chat about. First thing, and we've sort of talked about it, is that it's real-time information. That information's at your fingertips. It lets you understand your building better. It identifies areas of need in relation to where there's possible issues. And it is a massive thing to be able to understand how your building is operating. And that is all in that information, that real-time information. Cost. Second point, cost is a massive thing to us all. Any period of downtime or business interruption comes at a cost. And what we want to do is try to negate or reduce those costs at all. By understanding the building better and by using the data that is presented to ourselves, we can reduce and eliminate those potential costly interruptions. Next one is proactive versus reactive. Well, again, we have touched on this previously, but the data gives us a better understanding of the potential issues that are coming forward, so we can be proactive in that. Using data, we can prevent any issues rather than not know about them until it's too late. And that is being proactive. And I think that is a massive plus to this. The last one is potential loss avoidance. And I'll just give you an example here. And it's one that Zurich had themselves, we in Zurich had. So it was in a comms room, and we had an air handling unit, and it was not working properly. And there was a blockage. And basically, it was a buildup of water. Humidity levels went high. This was picked up on the actual the building data, and we were able to rectify that and prevent potential loss. I know that loss could have been within 6 figures. It would have been a skip of water aspect with all the computer equipment, etc., the comms equipment in that comms room. I know Martin will probably touch on this because he was at the forefront with that. But that there just shows that the importance of that building data for loss avoidance. And I think that a real life example means a lot to us as well as everybody else. That is really myself finished now, giving you a brief run through data mitigation. I'll now hand over to Martin.
Just before we go to Martin, I should have mentioned at the beginning, there is a chat function in this webinar. So please, as we go along, if you have any questions about the system or about anything that we've discussed, put it in the chat. I've seen a couple coming in, but yeah, the more the merrier, really. But yeah, now we will hand over to Martin Richards, who, as I previously mentioned, was responsible for implementing technology like we have discussed just now into Zurich UK buildings. So Martin, on to you.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Ian. 4 years ago, we started working with GWT Insight at our Farnborough and Whiteley and London offices. We've tried various other demand technologies, but Insight was different and seemed more intuitive. As with all modern smart buildings, these aren't very smart if they're not operating efficiently and have hidden issues, which a lot of buildings can have. Even the most modern of new buildings, such as our Unity Place building in Swindon, can have issues. Insight is a plug-and-play data collection device connected to the BMS or an associated building control system, such as an air conditioning system, and operates through a secure and stable 5G connection. For those who don't know, I know, Ian, you touched on it earlier, but a BMS is a building management system which controls the large energy consuming systems within a building, such as the HVAC, the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, the lighting, fire, security systems. And it really does provide an entry level gateway into smart building technologies. Insight doesn't require a connection to any corporate networks. It does require a standard 3-pin power supply. And for BMS and HVAC systems, these do need to be what's known as BACnet enabled. So it's something that you have to just double check before you would consider using Insight. Insight collects the data only and does not provide an inbound connection to control the building. So that's really important for your IT people to understand about the connectivity. This is done via the BMS, including any updates and setting changes. Insight offers a smart way of analysing the BMS data, intelligently focusing on exceptions and mismatches that are present in the system. This is both a proactive and can help offer a bespoke business-focused maintenance solution, assisting you further in maintaining your building and reducing operational costs and risk. Insight integrates with manufacturers such as Trend, Sauter, Tridium, Cylon, Daikin, and Mitsubishi. So it covers a whole host of general HVAC companies. You will be able to encourage your service partner to investigate issues proactively, which can prove highly efficient if left undetected, helping to improve the overall customer experience within your premises. From a user experience, It identified us with fan coil unit issues and other major HVAC plant items that, unknown to us, were hindering each other. This information was available to us via building reports, which included recommendations for improvements. Through email alerts, it helped identify a leak in a comms room at Farnborough, which Gordon touched on a few moments ago, through higher than expected humidity levels. This gave us an automatic alert via email, which we were then able to deploy engineers to investigate. And obviously, it really did save us in the long run and got to that problem very much earlier than what we would have expected. Insight can also act as critical temperature monitoring, which is ideal for IT comms room spaces. This brings me on to a more recent project that we had, which is Unity Place, which you can see in the image on the left-hand side. Unity Place was constructed in 2022 and is our new flagship headquarters in Swindon. It replaced a property that we'd been resident in for several years, which we had outgrown. And this was a huge step change into smarter buildings. Insight provided us with an unexpected benefit, which when we installed this at Unity Place, I mentioned about smart buildings not being very smart. And a smart building is not smart if it's not operating efficiently. And this can often increase your business risk and costs in relation to energy and expensive repair costs. Insight was very easy to install. It quickly identified inefficiencies in the commissioning of the building controls, and we were able to evidence this. We were able to make some immediate changes, and we saw the benefit of these straight away via the live dashboard, which we were able to visually monitor and extract reports from through either CSV file, graphs, and heat maps. This was particularly helpful during the defects and warranty period, and this enabled us to challenge our principal contractor with certain elements around the commissioning of the BMS and the initial setting up of the HVAC plant. We move on to the next slide, Ian, please. It identified a higher than predicted energy consumption for the building, and some of this was caused from the ventilation working excessively and the heating plant boilers and erratic pump operation that were contributing to this increase. It also identified that some additional boiler smart technology that we had installed separately was in fact conflicting with our BMS, resulted in the system starting to fight against each other, which increased our energy consumption and fatigued items of plant quite early on. Being able to challenge these during the defects and warranty period lessened our risk financially and helped to manage our first year's occupancy, providing clear and concise evidence to support the challenge. And this was an unexpected benefit of Insight, which we hadn't previously seen. The graph on the slide actually demonstrates switching activity in the plant. So we were able to pull. This is just an example. It was a live one from February last year, but it really does demonstrate where we made some changes, and the gap demonstrates where the switching activity stopped, where it was unnecessary. And obviously that then reduced our energy consumption. Primarily, a lot of that was around overnight and at weekends, which we weren't aware of plant that was operating in at those periods. Thank you, and I'll hand back to the team.
Thank you very much, Martin. Just before we go on to the next slide, although we're already on it, I just wanted to ask, you mentioned the reports and a dashboard, but the dashboard and the reports, I take it the reports came through periodically and the dashboard was something that you looked at on a day-to-day basis?
That's correct. Yeah, the reports were emailed through to us, and then the dashboard and the heat maps was something that we would go into and visually look at that.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks for clearing that up for me. Great. Right, just to summarize, as we've talked about, smart buildings are getting smarter every day, and the potential to realize the benefits this provides is available to all building owners and tenants right now. We know that most commercial and public buildings are using 30% more energy than necessary, and the current price of energy and the cost saving potential is significant. As Gordon touched on, risk management is key to ensuring your workforce and assets remain and feel safe in their working environment, and the data within a BMS has a lot to do with risk, and therefore utilizing this data will make everybody plus your assets safer. Every organization has a responsibility to become greener, and thankfully we have more and more support coming from the government and advice from experts on how best to do this. The regulations that are in place now and coming in relation to net zero will ensure we all know what our carbon footprint is, and more importantly, how we plan to offset it. Visibility and knowledge are two vital factors to making sure we are playing our part in a more sustainable world. Thank you very much for your time and your attention today. And now we will look at some of the questions that have come in the chat while we've been talking and do our best to answer as many as we can. So Alan, have we had any?
Yeah, Ian, we've had 4 questions so far, so please keep those coming. The first one is from Katerina. Will the customer get a discount on premium building insurance if they use a solution like this? So yeah, if you have a smart building, will that lead to you having a discount in your building insurance?
I can take that one if you want. The system is not linked to the premium. You do not have to be insured with Zurich to use this in any way. What I would say is that if you were insured with Zurich, again, there wouldn't be a discount as such. But what I would say is this, to me, this is another level of management. I did discuss the sort of the risk mitigation and ask that there. That will be a positive feature in my eyes, that you've got this BMS system, or you've got the Insight system looking at the various bits of control on site. And I would be putting that down as a positive feature rather than anything, but it doesn't specifically link to premium discount.
And I suppose the other thing to add is that we don't share the data. So even if somebody is following all the recommendations, they're running an extremely energy efficient building, massively reducing the risk using data, it is still down to them to share that information with whoever they're insured by, if necessary, to say, look, we're following industry benchmarks and best practices, because the data is there, it's real time, it's it's relevant. So yeah, so it's down to the individual person to show that they are doing the right thing, and then it's down to the insurer to look at that data and react.
Thank you. So there's a question from Lauren, which is what type of buildings can IoT be used to extract data from?
I'll take this one. Lauren, I suppose there's no type per se, but generally speaking, a building with a BMS will provide the greatest benefits back to the end user, quite simply because of the amount of data that IoT will be able to work with. With any system like this, the more we feed into it, the better it becomes. But if you're talking about types of vertical and industry, we have seen benefits across manufacturing, warehousing, production, retail, education, hotel, offices, the sporting world. So, and if there are high energy users, they will see some benefits. However, if there's a BMS involved collecting numerous points of data from different components throughout a building, you will surely benefit more, as the system will be able to analyze more. Where there's no BMS, systems like this can still have an advantage, but those advantages are limited, and sometimes require the installation of further pieces of equipment like clamp meters or additional sensors to get things talking and communicating. But it certainly can act as an energy management solution in that form. But to get the true benefits across risk, sustainability, energy, I would really feel that a building management system would need to be in place. Hopefully that's answered the question.
Thanks, Ian. There are two questions that are similar, one from a separate one from Katerina and another from Lauren, I think. Katerina is how does the company address potential concerns regarding data ownership and access rights, especially in collaborative environments involving multiple stakeholders? Lauren was asking about challenges, including security, but not limited to security. So I guess, yeah, are there any, how do we manage those sort of data access and potential cyber risk exposures that might arise from having a system that's plugged into our BMS?
I think if this one might be better placed being answered by Martin and myself. If I go first and I just talk about the data aspect and the security side of things, the data only flows one way, and no personal data is ever captured. It goes straight into secure cloud storage, where the analysis is done, and then it's delivered straight back to the dashboard. That is not, as I mentioned just now, it's not shared with anybody else unless the customer or the end user decides to share their own data. So Zurich Insight, the system that Martin used, would never share that data. That data would never go anywhere else. But Martin would be able to talk you through any other slight challenges that might have been there. So Martin, I'll hand over to you.
Certainly, Ian. So being able to demonstrate the value that IoT will bring to stakeholders can sometimes be difficult. IoT is often a hidden back of house technology, which is not necessarily customer facing. So your stakeholders is really, really important to get your stakeholders on board and to get them into understanding the data that the IoT can actually provide. There's a lot of benefits that IoT can bring, whether it's around occupancy, energy saving, and so on. Having the knowledge of the buildings and infrastructure is critical. A dedicated sponsor, an owner such as myself, that's really critical as well. The fact that it's standalone is a benefit for internet security teams. It doesn't compromise any corporate networks. And Insight itself has been rigorously tested for security and receives regular updates.
Thanks, Martin. Sorry, it was my apologies. It was actually Simon who was asking about cyber attacks as well, and has made a comment in the chat that his house is semi-smart, which is means he's saving money on his electricity, I think, which is great. Lauren had also asked about security, but also about other challenges in terms of using these types of systems. I think you touched on it slightly there, Martin, but just wondering if you can expand on it, stakeholder buy-in and, working with stakeholders, I suppose, and any other challenges that you face in implementing a solution like this, understanding data and that type of thing, I suppose.
Yeah, so quite often, getting the key stakeholders on board with this is really important, and often, it can provide a lot of benefits to our stakeholders in terms of space utilization, occupancy, and space planning, that type of thing. So the benefits really is in gathering data. It's understanding the data and then being able to do something with it. No point in collecting the data if you're just going to sit and do nothing with it. So what we did with it, we were able to look at our properties and look at our footplate and look to see what spaces were being used in our buildings when it comes to IoT. So it's really gave us a benefit in terms of being able to plan ahead for the future and understand what our occupancy was looking like. It also enabled us to create some sensory guides, which we've implemented in all our UK buildings. So when I mean by a sensory guide, it brings IoT to life a little bit, and it explains a little bit back to our customers within our buildings around hot and cold areas, drafty areas, areas that are well lit, areas that are slightly darker for whatever reason. So it's an environmental sensory guide which we've implemented to all of our sites. And without the IoT, you wouldn't have been able to provide that type of benefit as well. So it's got some huge sort of hidden benefits. And I think by doing that, it gets the stakeholders engaged a little bit more in IoT. It can quite often be a something that's hidden out of the way, and not everybody sees it. So it's bringing it to life a little bit, so people start to see a real benefit for it.
Yeah, so I suppose people are seeing the connection between the data and actually how the building operates and how they
Correct.
experience the building. You might have answered this one, Martin, but Chris has asked a question about, can the system monitor desk occupancy rates to assist with building usage?
So IoT can. Insight is not necessarily a tool that would do that. It has got features to do that, but what you are looking at, you know, if you're looking at desk monitoring and room sensors and indoor air quality and temperature monitoring, it's a bit of a blended approach between other IoTs and Insight itself. But there are integrators through APIs and things like that that can actually bring this data together. And then present it back to us. So yeah, it's a product that's developing as well. And you know, there's a lot of smart technology companies out there looking at occupancy data and so on. And it's you know, there's absolutely hundreds out there if you try to search, but it's finding the right ones and working with the right developers on that.
Just to add to that, I would just say, from experience with the solution that Martin used, if the data is there within the building of desk occupancy rates, then the system will certainly be able to implement that and analyze that data along with other data, as Martin said, if it's not in the BMS by using things like API. But yeah, it certainly could be analyzed and used with building efficiency.
Thank you. And question from Lauren. You mentioned water as a risk mitigation area. How is the data from water usage used in this respect to mitigate risk within a building? Maybe one for Gordon.
Yeah, I'll take that one on. Thank you. The big risk in relation to water usage in the building is escape of water. That is a massive issue to the insurance world. It's also a massive issue to people. And really, what we're looking for within the data is early indications of a potential escape of water issues. That can be identified by high usage, by variations in usage. So that information comes in, then we can act upon it. The client can act upon it and look at it. And that the benefits of doing that, knowing about that issue so early, is very simple. It reduces sort of repair bills. It reduces sort of the claims costs, the disruption to the business, to the building, and generally the interruption periods in total. So it is all about just being able to maintain and understand what's going on with regards to the water usage, and that is the mitigation of the risk of escape of water. Really, the earlier we find out about that, the better, and that in turn reduces sort of cost, repair bills, and interruptions.
Thanks, Gordon. And then we've got two final questions. I think just quickly, what is the cost to the client? I guess that depends on the system used, but Martin, I don't know if you can speak to that, or Ian, perhaps.
Yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there, Alan. It's very much dependent on what's being monitored in terms of, you know, we have customers that have numerous buildings across numerous sites, customers who have a couple of buildings very close to each other operating off one BMS. So that question is quite difficult to answer without some additional context to it with regards to knowing what would be assessing and what would be looking at. But I would be very happy to take the question from George offline and look at their portfolio in a bit more detail and provide a more constructive answer.
Great, thank you. And yeah, another follow-up from George there. Within the healthcare sector, there have been lots of physical risk management features, like water shut-off devices to internal appliances, etc. Would the technology notify a client remotely at the time of the event? So I think a notification that a shut-off device or something has been activated, I think, is the question.
So again, I'll take that one. So a system like this has got an alerting function. However, again, it will come down to whether that data is fed into the system. So if that data is coming into the system regarding shut off devices via the BMS or through through another format, then the system would be able to look at it, but it would need to be again assessed and looked at how that data is being gathered and where it's being stored.
Yeah, and I can add to that. We do know that under sprinklers that we can find out if valves are open or closed because there's monitoring on the valves, etc. It's just that piece of monitoring, George, that we do need. And if it was electronically monitored, we would be able to tell that. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, thanks. No more questions, Ian?
Excellent. Well, in that case, it's a chance to wrap up here. So I'd like to, first of all, thank Gordon and Martin for joining the presentation today and giving their expertise. I'm sure everyone out there found it very insightful. And Alan, thank you for handling the Q&A. We will be issuing this presentation out in due course. There are some clickable links as you go through them that will give you some more information with regards to both the regulations and the products that we've talked about. If there are any other questions, everyone who received the email should have had some contact details from who they received it from, whether it be from myself or somebody else. Please feel free to get in touch and ask any questions that you might have that we maybe didn't get a chance to answer today, or you think of once the webinar is done. But I suppose it's my chance to say thank you very much for attending, and hopefully see you all again soon.